Please invite the deputations to come in.
冇人點人數啊！一點嘅啫。因為我哋而家好慘嘅，温住立法會咧係靠啲假期做嘢過到，咁所以變咗就好慘，每個政黨都係。揸緊啲我話。係，我明白嘅，明白嘅。但係有時咧，人哋講下，我又覺得我唔想打佢。你好。係咪啊？係咪啊？好啦，我盡量揸緊啲啦。知道嘅，知道，我明白嘅，我明白。係，今個團體咧就嗰啲惡嗰啲，即係我哋嗰啲民間團體多，係啊，民間團體多，就嗰啲係各位。
Please be seated. Please find your name from the plaques, from the name cards. Welcome, all of you. Good afternoon. Welcome, all of you. Session 1 started from 9:30 a.m. and we finished it. Now is the second part. Apart from our members, we have Mr. Matthew Chung, Secretary for Labour and Welfare, with us. And also we have Ms. Stella Chang, Principal Assistant Secretary for Labour and Welfare. Ms. Susanna Lai, Principal Assistant Secretary for Financial Services and the Treasury. And we also have our own members. We just finished the first part, so they're coming down. May I remind you that on your table you have an earpiece. Those who are coming for the first time, if you're not familiar with the system, it doesn't matter. Our staff will help you with 3 channels: Cantonese, English, Putonghua. And we also have the floor channel. If you're not familiar with anything, seek assistance from our colleagues. Previously, some deputies had submitted comments to us. Some haven't. I hope that after you've spoken, you can pass your written submission to the Secretariat. That will be useful. On the 11th of October, 10 scholars came to express their views, and today we have the labor organizations, welfare organizations, concerned groups, and political parties. Altogether 70 of them. We heard 30-odd just now, and we have 33 more to go. As our time schedule is tight, I'd like to tell you that we will accord 3 minutes to each of you. Of course, if you exceed your time, the rest of the attending deputations won't have enough time. Of course, we will take questions from you. If you want to supplement, you can raise your hand. So we'll make the arrangement. I'd also like to inform you that all your remarks today are not protected by Cap 382 Electoral Powers and Privileges Ordinance. And your written submissions are also not exempted and protected under that ordinance. Besides, before you come, you're given a set of notes to remind you of what you should pay attention to when you are attending this meeting or when you're sitting in the public gallery. Some deputations have only submitted written comments without attending this session. So those who have not yet submitted papers to us, please do so. that will serve as an important reference for us. So we'll start part 2 of this public hearing. Let me see. It's Momentum 107. Mr. Homan Kit. Good morning. Momentum 107 is concerned about the use of public money as well as tax revenue. We're a lay organization at a public forum for the ordinary citizens. I also discussed with Mr. Matthew Chung whether or not this proposal represents an overall change. Now, this concept of universal is a broad brush approach. No means test is proposed. You receive assistance irrespective of your age or background. Now, this is risky because money won't fall from heaven. In other jurisdictions, all universal retirement schemes had led to collapse risks. We're a Hong Kong member of Momentum 107. In July, we attended a forum in North America. 70-odd tax-paying or taxation organizations attended. For different organizations, whatever name you give it to such a system, a similar system is on the verge of collapse. The reason is that young people are not satisfied with this sort of so-called elderly tax. In Germany, they're talking about 600 billion Hong Kong dollars of subsidy. In France, they got a deficit of 9,000 billion deficit. In Taiwan, they will collapse in 10 years' time, although the ruling party said that it would solve the problem. Now, there is this existing safety net. This proposed change will bring to the middle-class families and taxpayers fundamental changes. Ultimately, the victims will be the middle-class employees. For the young employees, they will in future have to pay an extra monthly tax. For the tycoons, there's no impact whether or not the amount is big or small. They will not be affected. However, the middle-class families will feel the pressure, and after some time, the whole system will collapse. And now in Hong Kong, we're talking about the resentment of young people. You can see that tax increases will lead to dissatisfaction on the part of young people. Mr. Matthew Chung should not plant a time bomb for Hong Kong society. In future, young people will have to bear this heavy burden of social welfare. In Greece, when they went bankrupt, the protesters were not very gentle and modest. They threw gas bombs over through vehicles, etc. I went to Greece to have a look. They could not balance their books. I hope that the government can stop before it is too late and stop this proposal for universal retirement protection.
Next, we have Ms. Yim Pik Fan from the Middle Class Concern Group on Retirement Protection. Thank you. Mr. Homan Kit said that the middle class in fact, was a sandwich class. Professor Nelson Chow has proposed a cap in his report. And also, in fact, I've talked to people in the different occupation zones. In this present movement, the young people really feel discontented, but they are not like the young people in Greece, as mentioned by Mr. Homan Kit. But then in Hong Kong, we really have a very serious problem of disparity between the rich and the poor. And I don't think our young people really resent the idea of universal retirement protection. In fact, people all want to make their contributions to society. The middle class, the grassroots, they all want to contribute to society. So you make the contributions irrespective of whether you are from the middle class or from the grassroots sector. And then there will be a pool of money available. It's about each of us contributing our own bit, the grassrooters, the middle class, the businessmen. There needs to be interaction among the various sectors. I think if we do so, we will be able to narrow the wealth gap in society. In fact, people's contributions can be regarded as investment in their own future and the future of society. So let's take action. Let's not keep on consulting and discussing. I'm sure everybody is willing to make the contributions, irrespective of whether they belong to the middle class or the grassroots sector. Yes, next, Mr. Chen Chung Yao. I don't think the administration has really considered the matter seriously. The government feels that it is merciful when it increases the OAA by a few $100s. Concerning retirement protection, many people ask where the money will come from. In fact, our administration has wasted a lot of money on the express rail, on the Hong Kong-Macau Zhuhai Bridge. The government should adopt a long-term vision, and also in the PWSC, all the livelihood-related items have been withdrawn, and I'm worried that if universal a proposal on universal retirement protection is put forward, maybe the administration will not want to advance it on the agenda. And so, Chairman, when the item goes to FC, you should ask the administration to advance the item. I hope that Matthew Cheung can start work as soon as possible and iron out the details as soon as possible. And I hope that the pro-establishment members will not vote down livelihood related proposals. Thank you. Next, academic for universal pension. Thank you, Chairman. I understand that the administration wants to mention or likes to mention poverty alleviation and retirement protection in the same breath. In fact, universal retirement protection is like education and medical and health services. And also, as stated in Professor Chow's report, in Greece, the retirement or the retirement grant rate is pegged to the wages of the people before their retirement. But in Hong Kong, we're talking about $3,000. The rate is not linked to the wages of the people before their retirement. And then as to whether there should be means testing, we can see that means testing, in fact, is a punishment to those who are willing to save. Some people say that universal retirement protection will victimize the middle class. The middle class do save money, but then when they are in financial difficulty, they get no assistance at all. And in fact, many in the middle class have said that they can't benefit despite the fact that they pay a lot of tax. All right. So does it mean that the middle class will have to pay extra tax? According to Professor Charles' calculation, 2.5%, according to his report. If you earn $50,000 a month, you pay $750, and when you retire, you get $3,000 as for the demo grant. And so I think retirement protection or universal retirement protection can also benefit the middle class. And so please do not oppose universal retirement protection because the middle class will be will be adversely affected. And please do not keep on citing overseas examples. You can see that concerning competitiveness, Singapore is first, New Zealand is second, Hong Kong is the third, and New Zealand practices universal retirement protection. So please do not cite overseas experience to oppose universal retirement protection in Hong Kong. The CE in 2002 promised that there would be a fund set up to provide for the elderly, and I think he should live up to his promise, and a public consultation exercise should start as early as possible. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Chu Si Poon from the Universal Retirement Protection Concern Group. Yes, I am from the Universal Retirement Protection Concern Group. We have proposed a quadripartite contribution, not tripartite. Government, employers, employees, as well as taxpayers. In fact, what we are proposing can help the government. In fact, as pointed out by Professor Chow, in 2041, the surplus will reach 127 billion. In fact, how come people say that we're going to have a deficit? We have a very strong fiscal base. We have reserves. This is a small place, and we have so much money in the public coffers. So how can you say that there will be a deficit? I think the FS is merely scaremongering. And also, we've proposed quadripartite contribution. And in fact, the purpose is to help the government. There will not be a deficit. Taxpayers will also need to contribute. High-ranking officials keep dragging their feet. I don't think I'm 88 years old. I don't think I will be able to see the implementation of universal retirement protection in my lifetime. So I'm not working for my own benefit. I hope that the future generation, the next generation of Hong Kong people can benefit. In other countries in the world, they do not practice quadripartite contribution, and that's why it is said that their schemes are not sustainable. But then we have proposed quadripartite contribution. Thank you. Next, Mr. Lam Chi Chung from the Elderly Council of Chun Kwai Ching District. Chairman, universal retirement protection has been discussed for many years. We have been demanding universal retirement protection for many years. At numerous fora, public hearings and seminars, we said that given the present economic conditions in Hong Kong, we will not have a problem implementing universal retirement protection. I think it's unreasonable to compare Hong Kong with places like Greece. I hope that the gentleman who has referred to the Greek example can seriously probe into the reasons for their bankruptcy. In Greece, 1 out of 10 people as a civil servant, and of course they need to maintain their own army. Now, do we have 700,000 civil servants in Hong Kong? No. If there were 700,000 civil servants in Hong Kong, then our government would definitely go bankrupt. Now, as Mr. Chiu has pointed out, the government is sitting on huge reserves. I think what we need is a credible government which truly cares for the well-being of Hong Kong people. In the last term of government, the excuse used was the lack of consensus in society. And I think this present administration must not use this excuse again. I think there should be a public consultation exercise on Professor Chow's recommendations. The Elderly Council of Chin Kwai Ching District agrees with the other deputations in that there must be a roadmap and a timetable. The administration must not go on dragging its feet. C.Y. Leung must, before his term ends in 2016, make sure that universal retirement protection is implemented. Ms. Lee Choi Kwan from the grassroots, this idea was mooted in the 60s and the 70s, and this is, I think, this fight for universal retirement protection is a long march. But then we've begun to see some hope because we've now got Professor Nelson Chow's report commissioned by the government to carry out a study. The team came up with a report in August this year. A demo grant is proposed for Hong Kong by the team. Professor Chow has studied 6 options and also one option that he has suggested. And after some actuarial studies, he has come to the conclusion that a demo grant is feasible and sustainable. There will be tripartite contributions, and the burden of the administration can be lessened. This is a retirement right for all. It's not a welfare benefit. 3 months have lapsed. The CE still hasn't responded to the recommendation. In his election manifesto in 2012, the CE promised to set up a fund to provide for the retirement life of the elderly. So I hope that in the 2015 policy address, the CE can tell us what the administration intends to do. The administration must not delay the matter anymore. Give us a timetable, give us a roadmap, implement universal retirement protection as soon as possible so that the elderly will not have to be worried about their life after retirement. Thank you. Yes, we have Ms. Chow Kit Yin from the Sham Shui Po Community Association. In fact, I respect the elderly very much. Tomorrow is the day for the elderly. And In a decade's time, I will be in my 60s, and I hope that I will not have to, when I am 70 years old, come to this conference room again to ask for universal retirement protection. In fact, many organizations have carried out a lot of research on retirement protection. And we've now got Professor Charles' report. According to the report, by 2041, there will still be a lot of reserves. I hope that those who oppose the idea can study the various options in detail. Please do not keep saying that the idea is not sustainable. In fact, the idea can also help the middle class. You know, the middle class have to repay mortgage loans. They have to provide for their families. They have to provide for their parents. So, in fact, they do not have savings, and the middle class will also grow one day, and when they retire they will get $3,000 a month. We're talking about tripartite contribution, and so those the employees will not have to contribute a lot. The employers will not have to contribute a lot either. Now, we've in fact conducted an opinion survey, and 70 to 80% of the respondents know what retirement protection means. And do you know that in Hong Kong, there is at least one elderly in one household, and so retirement protection is the concern of everybody. I think we should jointly shoulder the responsibility to provide for the elderly, to resolve the problems brought by a rapidly aging population. Now, if we shun the issue, then this is going to be a time bomb for the administration, because in about a decade's time, there will be a lot of elderly people. You know, there was the baby boom in the late 50s till the early 70s. So universal retirement protection should be implemented as early as possible, and there should be a public consultation exercise as soon as possible. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Lai Wai Tong from the Kowloon Thai Universal Retirement Protection Concern Group. Yes, thank you. Universal retirement protection is the right of all members of the public, and it represents respect for the elderly.
Retirement protection is not just for any community group. We can't show respect for the elderly with the present retirement schemes. Old people can get the OAA, which is only about $1,000 after 70 years old without the means test. But then there is an asset test for getting the OALA, and if the elderly people want to apply for CSSA, they need to apply in the name of a family, and the children have to declare that they are not going to support the elderly person. And basically, the elderly person will just get $2,800. Do you think our elderly people have any dignity in such a system? And the three schemes are mutually exclusive. The application procedures are also very complicated. Some comes with a means test as well. So it goes to show that our government does not trust the elderly people. Now, how can we show respect to the older generation? And the government has always been quite apathetic towards old people, and I don't think such an approach is acceptable in any part of the world. Old people have given a lot of their time and energy for society, for their families, and when they are in their twilight years, there should be a retirement protection scheme to show them respect. When C.Y. Leung came to office, he said there is no Leung camp, Tang camp, but only a Hong Kong camp. Meaning that Hong Kong is our home, and we Chinese people treasure elderly people. But do we really treat them as our treasures? Have we paid any attention to those who have contributed to Hong Kong? As a young person, we have elderly people at home. And we will also have to face this issue of universal pension when we get old. We want to build a scheme where there will be the spirit of mutual help. Well, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We can't say for sure that things will be smooth tomorrow. That's why we need to build a system. In the long term, we should analyze the universal pension scheme's effect on our overall finances. And this is C.Y. Leung's platform. I will reiterate, if Hong Kong wants to win, then we must consult the public on a universal pension scheme and implement it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, Ms. Wong Ching Sam, member of a youth concern group for retirement protection. Thank you. The administration says the MPF is to help the public save money. But if you don't get $10,000 a month, how much do you think he can contribute to MPF? It's just $1,000. And yet there is a 2% handling fee. And if the investments do not give you a good return, even the $1,000 cannot be kept at that level. In August, the overall MPF has risen by 0.63%. But then in September, there is a fall in the value of the MPF by 3.09%. Young people and workers do not have professional financial knowledge, and they yet have to put the money that they have earned with hard efforts into the MPF. And also there is an offsetting mechanism in the MPF, and the MPF can be eroded in that offsetting mechanism until June last year. $27 billion of MPF have been used to offset the severance payment and long service payment. And also from 2008 to 2012, $10.06 billion of MPF have been used for offsetting purposes. So how much MPF would be left for those people who contribute to it? According to the CNSD in 2009, 5.1 persons will support one elderly person, but by 2039, 2 persons have to support one elderly person, and the burden has been doubled. When the family cannot support their elderly persons, they can but resort to government welfare. If in the end the government has to foot the bill but the treasury is depleted, the only option is to tax the workers. And the workers will say, are there more taxes? And then they will again blame the people in 2014 because you had already forecast a big financial burden, but you did nothing to resolve it. Even children know they need to respect the elderly, but why is the government so mean with the elderly persons, and you refuse to give them basic livelihood protection? MPF is no protection for retirement, so our concern group strongly suggests that the big conglomerates, government, employers and employees should all contribute to a universal retirement plan. So Hong Kong elderly people will be supported by Hong Kong people. C.Y. Leung said that he will set up a fund to tackle this. I am asking the administration to deliver its promise and implement a non-means tested retirement protection for elderly. Ms. Ng Choi Shan from Elderly Poverty Research Group formed by young people. We know that the population is aging fast and we need to pay attention to the elderly poor problem. In September 2014, Social Security figures tell us that amongst those on CSSA, 60% of them are elderly people. This is because we don't have universal retirement protection, so many elderly people have to go for CSSA. And we are not just talking about elderly people in society, even those who take care of the elderly and the young people who are working, these people won't get any retirement protection either. And the quality of life cannot be maintained. As a young person, we really like to have a universal non-means tested retirement pension. We object to the means test because if you look at the elderly CSSA and the OALA, they are subject to means test and they are divisive. Now, is the means test really to screen out those who don't need the welfare, or are you just putting a labeling effect on the poor, the elderly people, especially the elderly poor? The government and political parties say young people have a big burden, so you should not do more to burden them. But precisely because of that, we understand that no matter how hard we work, how much saving we put aside, there is no guarantee absolutely that we will have any retirement protection. So we are happy to make more commitment. We want to have a universal non-means tested retirement pension scheme. It's just like the alliances option. The government, the employers and employees and conglomerates should all chip in so that we can protect everyone in Hong Kong, every Hong Kong citizen and their retirement life. Professor Chow points out in the report that the alliances option is sustainable and feasible. If still today there are people saying that eventually the fund will become bust, I will ask you to read the report. Please spend some time on the report written by Professor Chow, committed by government. I hope CY Leung, the CE, and also the administration can show some commitment. Please do not beat about the bush and don't lead us up the garden path anymore. CY Leung said during the election that we need to set up a kind of annuity fund. What has become of it? Did you conduct any consultation? Please implement the universal pension scheme as soon as possible, come up with a timetable, and then consult the public on all the details. Please do something for the elderly. Thank you. Mr. Chung Hao Ping from Kwai Fong Estate Elderly Rights Concern Group. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I hope the SAR government will show some sincerity. After reunification, the Central Policy Unit was commissioned to gather information. A lot of information has been gathered, but we have never seen a report from the CPU. What has become of that effort? And the Alliance for Universal Pension has requested the administration to set up a universal pension scheme as soon as possible. But the SARG has instead commissioned Professor Chow. And you have been saying we needed to wait for Professor Chow's report. Now that we have the report, you should start consulting the public as soon as possible. You should listen to the public on the views on the report. But no, you are asking another Professor Chow Ki Li for his views, and I think you're such a bad loser, Mr. Matthew Chung. The OALA is subject to a means test. Please visit the elderly at the front line. There are many elderly people who cannot pass the means test because of disharmony in the family. Instead of $2,000 odd, they only get $1,000 odd every month. Please look at that point. At the beginning, you said that the OALA is just there for the time being, but 2 years and then 2 years have passed. Is it that you want to make life so difficult for the elderly that they should feel tortured? Is that what you want to do? I hope you will go and take a look at the front line. Please do not just sit in your air-conditioned room and write articles. There should be tripartite contribution for the universal pension scheme. It is an assistance to the government. We don't want the government to become bankrupt. Please think about this and set up some consultation meetings with the public as soon as possible. Thank you. Next, Mr. Lai Ming Lai from Elderly Welfare Concern Group. Thank you, Chairman. Today at this meeting, we see a lot of young people. Chairman and government officials, you can see that the mix of the group has become different. The present situation is that young people have started to show concern on different policies in the 3 occupied areas. There are many surveys being done, and one of them is retirement protection. This is something of concern to young people. I don't know why the government is pushing every unsolvable problem to the shoulders of the young people. They say this is because young people do not have upward mobility, they can't afford housing, etc. I'd like to tell you this. After graduation from secondary school, you have only one way forward, and that is to go to a tertiary institute. Whether it be a university, or you go for a higher diploma or associate degree course, you would graduate with a big debt on your shoulders to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars. So there is no mention of pursuing one's ideal or setting up one's family. When they are in debt, they look for a job. They want to look for a job that can give them subsistence and also allow them to repay their debt and also to support their parents and also plan for the future. For example, to purchase a flat. In fact, this is only the ideal situation, and I can say that this ideal is absent from present-day society. If this ideal is absent, if young people cannot even support themselves, let's say we want a flat, the administration is tightening up the application criteria for public housing, and singletons will not be considered. And so they do not have their own flat, and then they are in heavy debt. And now you say young people should also support their parents. So young people are facing a few big problems. But of course, we know we need to support our parents and we need retirement protection. The existing so-called retirement protection cannot provide subsistence to elderly people. Let me just finish with the last sentence. You say young people and society still find universal pension controversial. I think this is exactly what you need to discuss with the public, and that is whether we need a universal retirement pension scheme. Thank you. Mr. Chiang Kai-ping from Kwai Chung Estate Residents' Rights Concern Group. Good afternoon, Chairman, Secretary for Welfare and Labour and members. Chairman, good afternoon. Secretary, good afternoon, and good afternoon, everybody. Professor Chow has done research into universal retirement, but the administration has so far not registered any stance. There is no public discussion. There is no timetable. What does the administration want to do with this? Is it that you don't want to do anything? Since you have commissioned Professor Chow to write the report, Professor Chow's team spent a lot of time and energy on writing the report. Well, the administration must have regarded Professor Chow as being able to formulate a policy that will be acceptable to everybody. But after the report has been issued, the administration said nothing about it. On the contrary, community and civic groups already publicly consulting other people. I'm talking about consultation conducted by the communities. We are doing it in estates, in the community and in villages. But the administration has not said anything. Is that what a responsible government should do? This is not fair to Professor Chow's team. Their team made a lot of contribution, but the administration has not given any response. I hope the administration can conduct public consultation ASAP. You should also give us a timetable and a roadmap as soon as possible, so the public can discuss whether we should do this, and if yes, how should we do it. Don't just listen to other people saying that the option will bust and all the negative messages. They should not just look at Greece, but the successful examples elsewhere in the world. Society is made up by all and it is for all, and we should all take a part in that responsibility. Many young people are happy to fork out a small sum of money to make contribution, but the administration has not said anything about the report. The SMEs are saying they will be under pressure. But why are they under pressure? It is because of the high rent. The administration is selling land at a high premium. That is why the rent is high. Let me finish with the last sentence. I hope the administration will pay attention to that point. Shop rent is high. Some operators cannot afford it. Shouldn't that be the responsibility of the government? And really, the last sentence. We hope that we can all work together to support universal retirement pension. We should have quadruplet contribution. This will be good for the next generation. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. Next, Ms. Loi Choi King from Labour Rights Commune. Thank you. The Hong Kong Federation of Students should be going to the mainland to ask the central authorities to deliver its promise. And on behalf of the Alliance for Universal Pension and the groups present here, I am here also to chase up on Mrs. Carrie Lam and Mr. Matthew Cheung and also C.Y. Leung and his team to ask them to deliver their promise. In these recent years, we have been meeting CS4A and a few secretaries. The detailed figures of the pension scheme that is proposed will not be recapitulated by me today, but I would like to talk about the last year, and we have been meeting you, Secretary, and the CS4A on the options.
I have to say that we're not commenting on universal retirement protection. We're talking about the overall direction of the whole society. The budget is coming soon. The FS wants to spend more money on infrastructure, etc., etc. As for universal retirement protection, we have to consider the aging population of Hong Kong in the next 30 years. This generation and the next generation have to take care of their retirement protection. At the end of August, I remember very clearly that I used a pen to jot down what CS said about retirement protection. What did Mrs. Carrie Lam say? She said that this universal retirement protection system is a very grand blueprint for Hong Kong. She said that Professor Chow's report is only directional in nature. There are 6 options. We must have detailed research and consult the public. And Mrs. Carrie Lam also said that there's no question of delaying the report for public discussion. She asked us to surf the Internet for the report. But for those who don't know anything about the Internet, they won't know what the report is all about. But the whole society is already discussing this. We've been discussing this issue for several decades, and Professor Chow's report is published. We should start the mechanism of public consultation. Well, this MPF report from the government. The government forced this MPF upon us. We had to swallow it. Why is it that we can't discuss this universal retirement protection system? I should be told when we should start public consultation. In January, we'll have the policy address. In February, we're going to have the budget. So I hope that the Bureau Director can answer all these questions of mine. Next, Ms. Chu Moon-chan from Caretakers Concerned Group. After the publication of Professor Chow's report, members of the public were concerned about two issues. First of all, will the system go bankrupt? And secondly, consultation. The alliance's proposal is most reliable. We have hundreds of billions of reserves, and still we now have $70 billion of reserve. So we should have a perfect system. We shouldn't just have a pay-as-you-go system. We should draw a line after the deadline. Half should be channeled to the big reserves for the system. And for those big enterprises that earn billions of dollars every year will see an increase of profits tax of 1.5%. In 2041, it is envisaged that we would still have 17.5 billion in the scheme. So the scheme won't go bankrupt. In 2042, the aging population problem will subside. So the reserves should be able to cope. Professor Chow's team then said that at that time the administration did not give us yet the data for 2041. Otherwise, actuary calculation would have been done. So there should be a smooth transition, according to Professor Chow. As for the calculation, each employee won't have to pay too high a contribution. Those earning $6,500 or less wouldn't need to pay. And those earning $10,000 to $20,000, 1.5%, $300 per month only. So most members of the workforce belong to this range. That is not paying more than $300, but in future they will get $3,000. Those earning $20,000 or above, 2.5%, maximum payment $3,000 per month. So they won't lose out. For the person, the spouse, and the elderly at home, they can immediately get the protection. In the past, we paid a lot of tax but benefited very little. Now we're rendering the ineligible eligible. For the employers, the major pressure will be rent. But when compared with this amount, rent is very, very high. We believe the employers can cope. This universal retirement protection system is to have co-responsibilities among all members of the public. Even the government's team is of the view that the system is sustainable. For the actuary calculation by Professor Chow, that should be made public immediately. We have the biggest workforce now, and we must protect the public so that they can enjoy their retirement life and society will be stable. Next, Ms. Florence Chong from Grassroots Development Center. We won't dwell on arguments and justifications. Here, we would like to talk politics with the Bureau Director. Universal retirement protection is not just an economic issue. Many people emphasize that people should sustain their own parents. They shouldn't make use of taxpayers' money to do so. But that's only from the economic point of view. They only mention the economic point of view. Look at this from another angle. The umbrella movement had been sustained for so many days. This proves that members of the public no longer trust the government. Hong Kong people have already started to look at all sorts of issues, not just constitutional reform, which is very problematic. Economy, people's livelihood, etc., had been seriously mishandled. We're 30 years late in constitutional reform. Same for universal retirement protection. We don't just want universal suffrage. We also want economic development, and for social investment in projects can we head towards our people. In formulating policies, did you ever consider people orientation? Why is it that so many people came here to say that they cannot accept this government with no public mandate? The government should reconsider this. On the 23rd of August last year, when we met with Mrs. Carrie Lam and Mr. Cheung, the Bureau Director, at that time there's no umbrella movement yet. So we urge them sincerely to listen to the voices of Hong Kong people. Unlike what happened in the past, we could no longer wait for a gradual approach for upward mobility. So many young people and elderly are telling you that their daily living is really improper. There's no upward mobility. The middle class is moving downwards on the social ladder. The government should reconsider universal retirement protection. It's not just an economic issue, but a political issue. If you don't resolve political issues, you won't be able to win the hearts of the people. We've come to a stage that we can't tolerate you anymore. If we don't take a step further now for a future, Hong Kong will no longer see a future. Here, the friends here have been saying this for many years. We're not just asking the government to sacrifice. We must share the responsibilities together. Otherwise, instability will continue. If today we don't have down-to-earth solutions for the problems, even in the coming week, the government can clear the occupied areas. The umbrella movement won't end. It will actually spread. And that precisely tells you that our concern is that those Hong Kong people who are to stay very much hope that we can together build Hong Kong. We would like to see our government respond to public aspirations. Mr. Matthew Cheung, Bureau Director, would you please once again hear this today? In fact, we told you this last year. I hope that once again you can tell us that you are not going to mark time. We must genuinely implement universal retirement protection. Next, Mr. Au Nok Hin from the Democratic Party. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, Mr. Matthew Cheung, the Bureau Director, has heard so many views. I think all these years we've got so many public hearings. I don't know what feeling he has. I remember that I came here to LegCo once or twice to speak on universal retirement protection. I think that was in 2005-06 back then. Mr. Matthew Cheung was also there. And so many arguments expressed today have already been heard by you. Well, Mr. Matthew Cheung, government, where is your resistance? Well, from what I heard today, there's no objector. All of us are in support of universal retirement protection. So where are your difficulties? You said you wanted to find Professor Nelson Chow to publish a report. Oh yes, lay organizations waited, political parties waited. All right, we're finished our waiting. Professor Nelson Chow completed his report and told you that you should release $3,000 per month to all the elderly persons in Hong Kong. The amount quoted is higher than in the past, but the government adopted a vague position. On the 29th of August, Mr. Matthew Cheung said that he should consider social positioning. He should do all sorts of calculations, actuarial calculations, etc., etc. You said you had to wait for a report. All right, we waited for you. The report is completed, and you are still dragging this on. We've been discussing universal retirement protection for 20 to 30 years. Oh, no. Actually, And as early as the 1960s, the Ledge Code then was already discussing the subject. Let me tell you this, society can wait no more. Perhaps the government can wait, but society can wait no more. Many elderly persons are living under the poverty line from day to day. And every morning I saw elderly persons picking up waste cardboards, some even to their death. They're knocked down by cars. Do you want to continue to see this? If not, well, let me tell you, Mr. Matthew Chung, if you're willing to implement universal retirement protection, all the elderly persons, all the deputations here are behind you. If you can't implement that, please tell us your difficulties. We want to see universal retirement protection launched as soon as possible. Next, Ms. Mat Wai Yi, Tin Shui Wai Community Development Alliance. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just now, many deputations drew comparisons with overseas jurisdictions. Let's look at how sufficient retirement protection had been protected by the elderly. Well, the World Bank published a report on a 5-pillar retirement protection system. Hong Kong claims to be a metropolis, international metropolis, but in fact it's not at all. The first pillar is a mandatory non-contributory system. The 0 pillar is a basic or social security system which may be means tested and financed by the government. The second pillar is a mandatory, contributory, and privately managed defined contribution system. Pillar 3 is a voluntary, occupational, or personal savings system. Pillar 4 is an informal income support system. So, you're not in the picture at all. Now, Professor Nelson Chow had been commissioned by the government to compile a report on universal retirement protection. We thought that you would follow international standards. However, the report had been published for 2 odd months already. Where are the emphases? Where's the timetable? We know nothing about all these. There's no transparency at all. Lay organizations are already consulting the residents. For example, in Tin Shui Wai, on Tuesday, we conducted a consultation session for all residents in our area. And there's a high degree of participation. We had CSSA receiving elders as well as non-CSSA receiving kai fongs. We had consensus. Many elders in their twilight years, if not sustained by children, if they no longer has any working capacity, they have to rely on CSSA. Well, it is just a small amount to support them in a very basic manner. Still, they have to go through means tests. They are receiving CSSA with no dignity at all. They have to be checked throughout the whole family for all the preceding generations as well. So in future, do we want our young people to receive CSSA before they can make their ends meet? I think anybody reaching a particular age should have protection for a dignified retirement life. The government should shoulder the responsibility. It should no longer drag this on. We must have a timetable and a roadmap for launching such a system. Thank you. Next, Mr. Chen Kwok Yim, also from Tin Shui Wai, from the Tin Shui Wai Concern About Man. Well, after decades, the government is still studying this subject. And throughout the whole process, the government launched the statutory minimum wage, the mandatory provident fund, etc., and the government refused to help us. There are means tests. We have to fill out forms. It's very difficult for us to get CSSA. more so for MPF. The biggest beneficiary is not me, but the fund managers. So the MPF is for fund managers. When I retire, I believe the fund managers are to take away a third of my assets under the MPF. Well, don't think that you will have money for retirement. The 4 major chambers of commerce and trade associations suggested that severance payment should not be abolished. The very wealthy people in those chambers of commerce are sharing my assets. In future, when I really retire, how much money do I really have for retirement protection? If universal retirement protection can be implemented, then I need not be exploited by middlemen. Everybody can get what he needs for his living. That would be very good. Next, Mr. Kwok Kun from Tin Shui Wai concerned about pension. Thank you. I'd like to offer a few comments. Casually only. Well, in Hong Kong, elderly people may have worked for decades and would like to receive a meager sum for retirement. But still, the government has not given the green light to this universal retirement protection proposal. The government must be committed to this. The government cannot just tell us that it has allocated $50 billion for the subject and that's all. What about you? What about CSSA and OAA? The annual expenditure is over $20 billion. $25 billion for MPF. So $50 billion is really an irresponsible sum. It is very unreasonable. If the government is to allocate $50 billion plus $25 billion into the fund, then the fund will be quite huge. The government has to fetch talents to do this. Don't just fetch the funds. In Singapore, they have provident funds managed by big enterprises. Trade unions are running supermarkets. Well, after you've pulled together the funds, you can run a supermarket or whatnot. Don't tell us that in future you won't have money.
So what is important is that you get the right people to do the job. You get the brilliant people to do the job. So if you can use public money to operate a supermarket, you'll be able to get return on investing public money. So I think you should learn from Singapore. Everybody should get retirement protection. I think people like to compare the Singaporean government with the Hong Kong government. I want to say that the Hong Kong government is much inferior to the Singaporean government. In fact, since this person, C.Y. Leung, became the CE, Hong Kong people have been suffering a great deal. Thank you. Next, Mr. Chow Kem Poon, Neighborhood and Workers' Service Center. Thank you, Chairman. I think many of us here do not understand why the administration is dragging its feet. Why is it that it's so reluctant to implement universal retirement protection? It said that it had no data, and so Professor Chow was commissioned to carry out some research. I am sure our officials have studied Professor Chow's report in detail. According to the report, 1/3 of our elderly citizens are living below the poverty line. The MPF system has failed to provide adequate retirement protection for employees. A lot of the money goes to the fund managers. Sometimes fund managers fail in their investment decisions, and so I think the MPF system should be scrapped if it remains in its present form and state. It simply can't provide adequate safeguard for people, and then homemakers are not covered by MPF. The administration keeps saying that there is a lack of consensus in society for universal retirement protection. In fact, Professor Chow did carry out public consultation, and there were focus groups for different sectors. I want to say that the report tells us very clearly that the Hong Kong community is fully prepared to embrace a universal retirement protection plan. In fact, the profit-making businesses, the wealthy businesses, they're not or they do not mind paying a little bit more. So I suggest that the profits tax rate be increased by 1.9%. Only businesses with a profit level of over 10 million will need to pay this extra 1.9%. According to the report, there will still be a surplus of over $100 billion by 2041. So this is a sustainable plan. What are you waiting for, Secretary? Do you need further consultation? In fact, the public's views are clear. They are fully reflected in the report. So can I ask the Secretary why you haven't still made a decision? Next, we have Mr. Wong Yun Tat, member of the Kwai Ching District Council. Chairman, I've been waiting for universal retirement protection for over a decade. I understand that many political parties and organizations have put forward their proposals. Professor Chow has already come up with a report. So what are you waiting for, Secretary? Please do not drag your feet, Secretary. The more delay there is, the more serious the problem is going to become. We now already have a very serious problem. Many elderly persons are living under the poverty line, including elderly persons living with their families. Many employees are not able to make ends meet, not to mention providing for their parents. And $2,200 per month for elderly people is not enough. And some of them have to move out because they want to get CSSA. So if there is universal retirement protection, if the elderly can get $3,500 a month, then these elderly people can live with their families. We want society to be a caring one. We do not want to see many elderly persons living alone. We want them to be taken care of by their families. and the MPF system doesn't provide adequate protection to our employees. According to Professor Chow's report, on the average, people get $250,000 of MPF payment when they retire, and for the low-income earners, they may get even less. Do you think $250,000 will be enough for the whole retirement life? And homemakers are not covered by the MPF system. So ultimately, elderly persons who don't have enough means have to rely on the government. So the idea of tripartite contributions, in fact, can help the government ultimately. The government will not have to increase tax substantially to meet the expenses. The government should not just side with the tycoons and the big business groups. There should be a clear timetable and roadmap for implementing universal retirement protection based on tripartite contributions. Mr. Wong Ho-ming from the League of Social Democrats. Chairman, thank you. I don't think there's really a need for us to say any further about why we need universal retirement protection. Matthew, I believe you've heard these arguments many, many times. I have a request here. Deputations say there should be a timetable and a roadmap. I want you to give me a timetable about your daily work. What do you do on a daily basis? Where do you go? Now, in 2013, there were 3 rounds of filibustering. At the end of 2012, when there was filibustering on the OALA, you said that you would commission Professor Chow to carry out a research. Now the report has been published. All the data are there, but you keep moving the goalposts. You say that you have to also take into account the calculations made by the financial secretary. So you keep moving the goalposts. We don't know what you're trying to do. You keep saying that LegCo members filibuster. So can they are now putting the controversial items ahead of the livelihood issues. Why can't you talk to the other departments or bureaus, ask them to let the livelihood issues be dealt with first? And you are the secretary. Visit the occupation zones. In fact, I've been to Mongkok many times. You see many elderly citizens, they have to collect carton boxes and sell them. So you can come and visit the occupation zones. Now, I can give you this guarantee, all right? You and Chen Yun-han together go to the occupation zones and talk to the young people and talk to the elderly citizens. Now, just let's go to the occupation zone nearby at 3 p.m. Are you willing to accept this invitation? And then second, will there be public consultation? If yes, when? If so, why? And so we have to give me 2 clear replies. First of all, when will there be public consultation? And second, when will you visit the occupation zones? In 1989, Mr. Zhao Ziyang and Mr. Hu Yaobang also visited the students in Tiananmen Square. So are you willing to go to the occupation zone together with Chen Yun-han and talk to the students and ask them about their views? Now, I want to say that I, in fact, have gone there already. There is no need for you to send me this invitation. All right, I think we can continue. Yes, Chairman. The the research report was published in August. there are a lot of data in the report. The Labour Party welcomes this report and is grateful to Professor Chow and his team for having put together this report. The Labour Party also endorses the conclusion in the report, and that is there should be universal retirement protection for all. There should be a demo grant, which is the entitlement of all Hong Kong permanent residents. The Labour Party would like to give the following views concerning this report. First, I don't think the administration should continue to drag its feet. In fact, there are comparisons of the various options. If the government does nothing, then it's going to face a very heavy financial burden by 2041. The DAB and the New People's Party have suggested a means-tested scheme. I don't think that's really feasible. I think a non-means-tested scheme that all elderly citizens are entitled to is financially sustainable. Some feel that we shouldn't have universal retirement protection. We should try to improve upon the existing MPF system. But then, as many have pointed out, for those who have never worked, for those who are casual workers, they can't benefit from the scheme. And also, because of the offsetting arrangement, many employees, in fact, get very little when they retire. Homemakers, of course, are not covered. The report states very clearly that there should be a mechanism under which everybody gets a flat rate, and the scheme should be non-means tested. We hope that public consultation can start as soon as possible. We want to know when and how universal retirement protection will be implemented. Thank you very much. Next, we have Mr. Kwok-man Ho from the Hong Kong Federation of Social Work Students. Yes, I want to tell you what young people think. In fact, they support universal retirement protection because we're going to grow old one day. So, in fact, we are fighting for what we should be entitled to in the future. Young people may only be able to earn about $10,000 a month upon graduation, and they have to repay the various loans. We hope that young people can choose their areas of studies on the basis of their interests. And then elderly persons contributed a lot to society. Now we have many elderly people who are very poor. The administration is not doing enough to help them. Many of them have to try to collect paper cartons and in order to get some extra cash. So we hope that our elderly citizens can lead decent retirement lives. Universal retirement protection would mean that all elderly citizens can lead dignified retirement lives. C.Y. Leung should honor the promise that he made during the election. He said that a fund to provide for the elderly would be set up. But then he hasn't done anything about this. elderly persons feel that he has let them down. We want to know the timetable and a roadmap for implementing universal retirement protection. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Lee Man Long from the NPP. Chairman of the NPP is of the view that resources should be well utilized, and the administration should try to take care of the elderly after their retirement. According to Professor Chow, the government may have to increase tax to fund the universal retirement protection scheme. Some say that in Taiwan, the central retirement protection system has gone bankrupt. The deficit is equivalent to 158% of GDP, and we know that in fact the in Hong Kong the deficit may reach 14.3 billion, and as a result the financial burden of the middle class and also of young people will be greatly increased, and also such a situation will damage or harm the business environment in Hong Kong. The NPP suggests that for those elderly persons who earn less than $6,450 a month with assets of less than $100,000, they should get $3,600 a month. So we are for means testing, and these elderly persons will not be or their eligibility will not be affected because they live with their children. And then there should be a 3-tier system. There can still be the MPF and also voluntary savings. So we should have 3 tiers. First tier 1,200, second tier 2,400, third tier 3,600. In fact, most elderly persons will be eligible for tier 1, despite their the MPF payments they receive. Then our proposal will not involve new financing models, and the existing or rather the option is feasible and can balance the interests of different sectors in society. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next, we have Mr. William Zhang from the opposition against retirement or universal retirement protection. Thank you. No, as Hong Kong people, we also want to help the elderly who are living in poverty. But I think the most crucial word is universal, and that means so long as the people reached a certain age, they can get the benefit irrespective of whether they are rich or poor, whether they have assets or not. We see that Hong Kong people used to exercise self-discipline when applying for OAA, but now it seems that many people have decided to apply for OAA.
The universal scheme will cover the poor elderly, but at the same time, those who are not poor will be included. This is not a way to make the best use of resources, and we are not going to help those who are most in need. Universal pension sounds like a nice system. If you're at the right age, you have $3,000 a month and $36,000 a year. If you have 2 elderly persons, $72,000 a year. But how can we really make use of the resources to help the grassroots elderly? Now we are trying to distribute the resources evenly among all poor people. If we really want to have a universal pension scheme, most of the funding will come from the government, employers and employees. They are talking about a payroll OH tax. Professor Chow has said that even if all three parties will contribute, by 2026 the fund will see a deficit, and by 2041 the fund will be totally depleted. You understand, you should not use Hong Kong as an unending source of income. Also, if we go for a universal pension scheme, the payroll OH tax may have to go up year by year, and tax increases will put heavier burdens on workers and also small businesses. This will erode Hong Kong's competitiveness. People will have to work longer hours and work harder, and they have less time to spend with the elderly people in the family. The government should help elderly people who are in need. You should not just thin out resources. You should make the best use of resources by identifying the first 1/3 of elderly people who are poor. You should adjust the CSSA payments, and you can provide better elderly welfare. In other words, you should not just look at age as the only factor. You should think of making use of resources to help those in need in general. So I don't think a universal pension scheme is feasible in Hong Kong. Next, Alliance for Universal Pension, Mr. Aoyang Kun Tong. Thank you, Chairman, members. Good morning, afternoon, Mr. Secretary. Since this morning, I have been listening closely to all the views expressed, and I like to share this feeling. In the last session, and also the last speaker, and all those who object to the universal pension scheme, I find their views very strange. It seems they have not really read the report by Professor Chow. Someone said that there are 6 options in the report, but all of them will go bust. I remember those 6 would include optimizing the present system with a means test. In other words, even if you optimize the present schemes, you just are going to make them bust even earlier. Now, I don't understand the logic. You say we should only give resources to those who mostly need it. You seem to be very principled in your words, but you are also talking about a non-means tested scheme. What you are saying amounts to quickening the non-sustainability of the present pension systems. Just now you said there will be tax increases because the population is aging. Well, even if you have the 3-band scheme, if the resources are not continuing to come, you also have to increase taxes. And it seems you are saying that the entire tax system is unfair. Someone talked about the tax system. Then the first one you should mention is the profits tax. I think you are quite confused with your logic, and you are moving the goalposts all the time. You talked about Greece. In 2008, young people in Greece took to the streets because 40% of the young people were unemployed. And you didn't mention that. You blamed it on universal pension. You are using a simple argument saying that if there is universal pension, all schemes will go bust. You say it is like that all over the world, but just look at New Zealand. That is not one of the examples. Maybe you should look farther to Mars to get the examples. I think you should tackle the real root causes of the problem. There is a lot of controversy in society because we work our whole life, and in the end we don't even have basic retirement protection. This is quite unsettling, and it has been with us for a long time. Why is it that the administration cannot provide a timetable and a roadmap even now? Is it that you are a bad loser? I would expect that by 2015, in the policy address there should be a roadmap and timetable for universal pension. Thank you very much. Thank you, deputations and individuals. Since the morning, we have met 62 deputations and individuals, and I really thank you. Maybe you differ in your views. Now we'll have some time for discussion. Our meeting will end at 2:30. Like the last session, members will now be able to ask questions, and then the deputations and the government should answer. And of course, if deputations have questions to ask, you can raise your hand. We still have time. Let's see whether members have questions. Poon Siu Ping. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to thank the deputations for coming. Like the last session, we had a dichotomy of views. We support that there should be universal pension in Hong Kong. I asked the secretary, and he said that the report was initiated by the government. And we asked the secretary, there will be diversity of views, but what will be your stance? It's up to the government to show some resolve. But I need to seek some more understanding into the issue. Many deputations were asking what will be the next step. And the secretary said they had to wait for the meeting of the Commission on Poverty. As I read it, Professor Chow has included a lot of valuable information in his report that has been put together by a lot of time and energy by his team. He is saying that his proposal is easy to operate. Now, if we continue to delay, I'm afraid that we are wasting this very important and useful report put together by Dr. Chow's team. So, Secretary, let me ask you again. What is the arrangement like on the part of the government? What are your specific considerations so society will be allowed to take another step? Secretary, Chairman, as I said in the first session, Mr. Poon Siu Ping, I know you're all very concerned about the next step, so are we. As I said, on the 24th of November, the COP will have a second meeting on this issue. In August, we told you that there was the first meeting and Professor Chow's team came to do a presentation, but there was no time to hold an in-depth discussion. But in that meeting on the 24th, we'll have more time to do analysis because there is a lot of data in the report. And I said, the starting point is that in this last period, for a long period in the past, there have been different views advanced by the community, and the high ranks in government have set up the COP, and we know that you are very concerned about aging of the population and also retirement protection. So we said we should invite an objective and a neutral academic to take a comprehensive review of the entire issue and to see what views from the community are feasible and are worthy of further consideration. This is the background. We'll certainly follow up on the report, be assured. And on the 24th, your views are very valuable and useful. We will share your views with the members. We have had 2 hearings, and we will tell them the views we have collected. At the Commission, we hope they will seriously understand and digest the report in the time they have. As I said, we are exploring the way forward for retirement protection. But in fact, we did not invite Professor Chow to look at universal pension scheme. We said you should look into what kind of retirement protection would be best suited for Hong Kong. I understand you want us to make a decision as soon as possible, but we have to respect the mechanism. This is done by a task force, by the COP, and we have to go back to that task force. As you said, this morning we had over 60 deputations, which are quite polarized in their views. But it doesn't mean that we should stop the discussion just because of the discrepancies. And we have to look at Hong Kong's overall benefit as our final target. And also, we have to look at sustainability. The professor was also very frank. The report would cover the period only up to 2041, and he cannot say what will happen after that. The initial alliance's proposal is that in 2041 there will still be $100 billion reserved, but then again everything will be gone by 2050. So is it going to be sustainable in the long term? We really have to delve into all these issues. We have to understand that the administration is concerned about retirement protection, and it's already a kind of very good indication that we are placing it on the agenda. It shows that we are concerned. We hope to find a way out. I hope I have answered your question. Is it that there will be another response? I'd like to thank the Secretary for again mentioning the proposal by the Alliance for Universal Pension. But my understanding is that when the professor did the report or research, if deputations are serious about retirement protection, they can only rely on the population projection of the Census and Statistics Department, and that takes us only up to 2041. And I believe it will be up to the government to let us know the situation about the aging of the population. And then I believe the NGOs will be happy to do further projection about the stability and sustainability of our options. But the administration is saying that by 2050, everything will be used up. I think that is not very fair to the NGOs and community groups. We admit that we can only use the data and statistics of the Census and Statistics Department. And secondly, we still need a concrete timetable and roadmap. Mr. Albert Ho? First, I'd like to thank everyone. You have stayed until very late. I have sat through the 2 sessions and listened to many guests. In fact, many of the viewpoints have been heard before. But I'd like Mr. Ouyang to be aware of a new viewpoint. There was a young lady sitting on this side. She said that the older generation is robbing the younger generation. She used the word robbing. And this will become some kind of intergenerational conflict. And it's said that the older generation is snatching away the property which should be owned by the younger generation. I think that is quite a new viewpoint. However, we have always known the seriousness of the poverty issue. The Secretary understands it. In 2002, there was a UN report almost regretting the Hong Kong government, asking it to do more so elderly people will be lifted out of poverty. Now many of them are living below the poverty line. Hong Kong is an affluent society. We have a big surplus. We also have long-term infrastructural and educational investment. But our elderly people are leading a very pathetic life. We cannot face them. Today, you should improve their lot. You should have a universal retirement pension. But the younger generation today is heard to be saying that that would amount to robbing the younger generation. But it's good that there are other young people here who say we should take care of the elderly. I think we should not distort our values. I hope that lady belonged to the minority. Maybe there is some misunderstanding. Anyway. Many deputations continue to ask the Secretary about the way forward. There is one important point. The issue has been debated for a long time, and in the end, the administration decided to ask Professor Chow to lead a team to do the research. We have waited a long time, and in the end, we have the report. But the process has not been smooth, and the administration is giving people the feeling that you don't quite like the report. It seems you're really a bad loser. Maybe the report has been too positive about certain proposals. Now, what is the next step? The administration says they should revert to the COP. I don't know how much longer you would drag your feet. Many people are asking you for a timetable. You should not drag your feet anymore. Well, you have 2 more years into your term, but I don't know whether you will again be here in the next term. But can you show some commitment to Hong Kong people on this very important issue? The biggest controversy attending the universal or non-universal retirement pension is the point on sustainability. Dr. Chow's team thinks that it can be done. It is a question of a dialogue amongst the experts. Now, values should be discussed in public hearings. But, Secretary, can you at least make a commitment that in terms of finances, the administration will do its own study to verify the technical issues mentioned by Professor Chow's report. Would they be acceptable to you? Because that is his conclusion. Now, you have many ways to do your consultation. Is it that Mr. Wang Ho-yin, you'd like to take the secretary to Mongkok? I think he will treat you to lunch. There are many young people in Mongkok, but secretary, I will allow you to speak now. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ho, for your views and the very useful reminders. Number one, let me reiterate that the administration does not intend to drag its feet, but this is a complex issue. Ever since the starting of the term of this government, we have placed welfare of the elderly as one of the main thrusts of this administration. There are 4 main thrusts. 1, planning for an aging population. Number 2, poverty alleviation. Number 3, housing. 4, environment. These are the 4 main tasks of this term of government. And also we started by promoting the OALA, and 422,000 people are benefiting from the OALA. It was controversial, but facts speak louder than words. 422,000 older people are getting it, and I believe many of them who used to be collecting carton can now collect less carton. It is not for debate. The lot must have been improved. And also, apart from poverty alleviation, we also work a lot on elderly homes. We are increasing ambulatory care, home care, and also we are adding to institutional places. And also the $2 transport subsidy. We are actively, positively encouraging old people to go out and visit friends and their grandchildren, and this will be extended to GMBs in the first quarter next year. This term of government is really working hard to plow resources into welfare for the elderly. This time around, we are asking the professor to help us do the study. We have the same target. We want to find a way out for Hong Kong. So which is the best way for Hong Kong? In what direction should we go? In the process, we want to help the poor elderly as much as possible. We know 1/3 of the elderly are living below the poverty line. Our focus is not to help those who do not need our help, but those who need our help. That is the most important starting point. In the process, we must thank the professor for a very useful starting point. It's a very useful report. Mr. Albert Ho mentioned questions as to whether the administration will do more studies. My answer is, in the process, we will certainly follow up on the report. We will follow the chart or the route charted by the report. In fact, Professor Chow also said here that if the administration really wants to implement the report's option, he will propose that the actuarial studies will have to be redone. He was quite frank. Read the report, and he said if his proposed option will be adopted, he has said that the actuarial study will have to be redone. And please dig up the minutes of this meeting. He has said those words. He is a very frank person, a pragmatic person. He knows that the analysis is quite comprehensive, but he is using the projection of $3,000 up to 2041. So how much money would that amount to? We have to consider all these factors. But be reassured, once this is placed on the government's agenda, we will put our heart into it. Give some space and time to the COP. They need the time to work on this. Thank you.
The Bureau Director mentioned Professor Nelson Chow. So I'd like to clarify something. I don't want the Bureau Director's remarks to mislead you. There's nothing wrong with Professor Nelson Chow's remarks. As a scholar, he's being serious. Last weekend, we had a very serious discussion about this. He emphasized that we should start now. Of course, on certain areas, he would like the administration to look deeper into the content. But that doesn't mean that he's telling the government not to do it. So, Mr. Chung, Bureau Director, don't mislead society. don't tell society that Professor Nelson Chow is telling the government not to do this. Otherwise, it is unfair to Professor Chow. Dr. Fernando Chung, sorry, Madam Chairman, I had other meetings to attend just now. I'd like to thank the deputations for coming today. I think we are worried whether or not we are turning back on this particular subject. We've been discussing universal retirement protection for many years. The government is being evasive on the subject. Before the handover, this demo grant was proposed. The government disregarded it, and then we got the MPF. I think we all know now where the problems of the MPF are. We should not just do makeshift rectification. I think Professor Chow's report is a milestone. He is telling us that the elderly problem is unacceptable. Previously, before welfare transfer, 40% of the elders are poor elderly people. But after the transfer, still we have 30-odd%. The DAB, the New People Party, etc., were proposing piecemeal rectification only, or remedy only. By 2041, as Professor Chow tells us in the report, the MPF will become even more expensive than a universal retirement protection system. Now, this is a very important discovery. So, we should not work on piecemeal remedies. And Professor Chow is telling us that the later we do this, the burden the greater on society. I really don't understand why, at this stage, the Bureau Director still wanted time and room for maneuvering from us. In the past 40 years or so, we had spent plenty of time and room on maneuvering, and many elders have died already. Now, this retirement protection system is not a poverty alleviation system. It's just to meet the basic needs of our elderly people. Does the government have any stance on this? Or is it just passing the buck on to the COP? Professor Nelson Chow's report has very clear conclusions. On the conclusions that I just mentioned, does the government have any stance? Bureau Director. Madam Chairman, Dr. Chung might have arrived late. I have already said that the government is very concerned about problems resulting from an aging population, including retirement protection, and we're now examining the subject. It's precisely because of that the COP had commissioned Professor Nelson Chow's team to conduct a study and complete a report. Secondly, Professor Chow's report has laid a very good foundation for us to have an informed discussion. By informed discussion, I mean we don't just speak casually and randomly. We have something to start from. Besides, for the COP, just in August, the professor introduced the content of the report to the COP, and there's no time for further meetings. On the 24th of this month, another meeting will be convened to look into the contents of the report in depth, including statistics. As for consultation, I'll definitely bring your views back to the COP. If we are to do consultation, how should we go about it? What about timetable and route map? I'll explain to the COP. Well, he has spoken at length, but he has not told us his position. Does the government have any stance on this? The government keeps an open mind. We are concerned about the issue. Why an open attitude? Because we don't know the way ahead. How should we assist the elderly people? If it is to be universal retirement protection, how should we go about it? We cannot explain that in just a few words. Even Professor Charles said that even if his recommendation is adopted, we have to find more statistics. He personally told us that. I think the government has reversed this. I think you should go into the academia to look into this in depth, and then the public should go into the government to lead the discussion. I really don't understand why the government has adopted an open attitude. It has no stance at all. How can it lead society then? Well, two more friends would like to speak. Comments, questions, and answers. 2 minutes each. Mr. Chu Xitong. Madam Chairman, I'd like to rebut the Bureau Director. He said that Nelson Charles' recommendations are up to 2041 only. By 2042, the system will go bust. You're not giving him a great deal of time to conduct the study. That's why he can only stop at 2041. Secondly, Mr. John said that the government had given a lot of residential places to the elderly. On the 13th of June, I told you that 28,000 elders are waiting for residential places. And every year, about 5,000 elders die. Are they human beings? For over 10 years, we've been striving for residential places. But the government has never performed well. And now the government says that it is going to allow 100-odd people to retire on the mainland. Oh, in Hong Kong, if an elderly person has any problem, he needs only to dial 999, and the ambulance will come very quickly. On the mainland, he has to wait for his death only. So we need 28,000 odd residential places. How are you going to satisfy that demand? The Hong Kong Council of Social Service has been striving for that for many years. We can wait no more. What are government officials doing? You must seriously consider this. Are you accountable to us? I started to work from 1964, and in the year 2000, people asked me why I was still working. So I quitted my job and then worked as a volunteer for 14 years now. I walked past the Revenue Tower in the year 2000. I said I had time, so I quitted my job. Well, I was then asked to pay salary tax. It doesn't matter. I paid the the income tax. Well, Hong Kong is very rich. You're government officials. You have to consider this. It's a matter of conscience. Are you conscientious to Hong Kong people? We're now facing such a big problem. You should shoulder the biggest part of the responsibility. But your attitude is one of couldn't care less. Well, just now there was a speaker who said that the elders are robbing the young persons. If you know what's meant by social insurance, you know this very clearly. We're not sustaining them directly. They are saving up for their own future. Finish. Now, I'd like to respond to the Bureau Director's remarks. You always say that you've worked for the elders a great deal. You said you did this, you did that. But if you look at the number of elderly poor, you know the issue. Please explain to us the figures. Secondly, Dr. Fernando Zhang asked a very good question. What is the position of the government? Do you agree with the proposal of Professor Nelson Chow? When C.Y. Leung ran for the CE post, he had his manifesto, so the government should have his direction of governance. You say you have an open mind now. Well, you can just tell us that you have solidarity. That must not be your position. Do you agree with Professor Chow, or do you agree with the New People Party that there should be a tiered system? So, don't just put the blame on us and others. Please explain yourself clearly. And for consultation, you said that you discussed with the COP on the 24th of November. I know that, but you have to set a deadline for yourself. Otherwise, this will become an endless exercise. Well, please be frank and honest with us. When will be the deadline for public consultation? Can you give us a report in January, February next year? Well, you have to give the Bureau Director some time to answer your questions. 2 issues. Well, can I answer Mr. Chiu's remarks at the same time? Yes, please. Mr. Chiu, concerning your 2 remarks, this term of the SARG does accord a very high priority to elderly welfare. Of course, we might not have done enough, but indeed, we've been doing something. Yes, we understand that the pressure is huge in relation to residential places. We cannot provide the places immediately because it takes time to construct the buildings. Well, we have 9,000 such places in the next 10 years. Well, we have a very tight supply of PRH sites, and we must not waste sites now possessed by welfare organizations. We have injected $10 billion into the lottery fund. Altogether, 17,000 such places can be provided. So we are concerned about the issue. As for the waiting elders, when they are living in the community, will provide home support. Residential care is only a backup facility. 420,000 elderly have got enhanced OAA. And next year, there will be adjustments. And then we have the $2 transport concessionary fare. Just now, you misunderstood our scheme in Guangdong. We're just offering another option to the elders. They may want to go back to Yantian or Zhaoqing because they came from there, so they would like to retire there. So if the government can provide residential places there, they can have a choice. It's just to facilitate the elders such that they get another option. We're not driving the elders to Guangdong to retire. At the end of the day, we are elderly oriented. And then the other friend mentioned something. The policy and attitude on this universal retirement protection system are one of an open one. Why? Because we really have to borrow collective wisdom from society. The report was published in August. We didn't have time to discuss it in the COP. If the government immediately said that it would do this and that, it would be controversial. Secondly, it is complicated. Thirdly, it will impact on the economy of society. The long-term financial burden has to be accepted or acceptable to society. If you want to increase tax, what will be the viewpoints of society? It's not as simple as endorsing the recommendation or adopting the recommendation just because we support it. So I would like to have more tolerance from the public. Sorry, the speaker is not coming through. He did not respond to the public consultation issue. And he always said that he keeps an open mind. In the past 10 odd years, we're all sitting here to discuss the issue. So what about this demo grant proposed in 1993? Sorry, time's up. A number of points were raised. Well, he has not answered my questions at all. Bureau Director, we'll go back to the COP to have an in-depth discussion. last time, the chairman already wrote to the CS4 administration asking for consultation. I'll definitely bring the message back to the COP. I saw another hand, but I have to draw a line there because I have to chair this meeting. I have to grasp our time well. Mr. Lai Wai-tong, Madam Chairman, I very much want to ask the Bureau Director this question. When we say we want to have a universal retirement protection system, what is the ultimate objective? Does the government just want to resolve the problem of elderly poverty, or does it want to perfect and resolve our social welfare system? Is it going to propose policies that respect our elderly people? I hope that the government can clearly state its position in a clearer manner. Bear in mind, position. Yes, let him answer. Well, the basic position of the government on this policy is that the needy elderly should be able to live better. Limited public resources should be concentrated on the most needy. That's our major policy at the moment. Once again, I'd like to thank all the deputations and individuals who have attended this meeting. I'd also like to thank the government officials. In fact, we've always been discussing these issues. We asked whether you have a concrete timetable. After Professor Nelson Chow has come up with his report, when will you give us a formal response? Now, all these viewpoints have already been presented to you. The government has not given us a formal reply. From another angle, the government has this dedicated subcommittee, which will continue to follow up on this. On the 24th of November, the COP will convene another meeting. The government is duty-bound to come back to us. And today, the deputations and individuals have presented not a great deal of viewpoints to the government. And on the 24th, it has to handle all these viewpoints one by one. In December, where I hope to get an answer in the middle of this month. I discussed with the Bureau Director. He's worried that he wouldn't have enough time. My attitude is that at least by the middle of next month, he should give us some preliminary responses. He shouldn't ask us to start afresh. Society won't agree either. Among members of the public, among LegCo members, we would like to have a very clear response from the government. Besides, I'd like to mention that, well, in fact, this was also mentioned by the deputations today. Our observation is that today's Hong Kong has a very different atmosphere from a few months ago. Of course, the focus now is on constitutional reform. Yet, retirement protection and labor welfare are also the concerns of young people. They're also concerned about us. Yet, last week, I met with them. They're also concerned about retirement protection. We're also awaiting responses from the administration. So the government has to act quicker. It shouldn't just address concerns and views expressed today. It should also address voices in society. Yes, it's normal to have different views. No problem, we have different views. We can have debates. But we have to handle the problem. If you don't handle the retirement protection issue, you have to add resources to the welfare system. So you have to prepare in advance. And this morning, I was very surprised by that lady. She said that there's no reason why they should sustain us, elderly people.
She asked why we didn't press for universal retirement protection when we were young, and we are now so eager to see universal retirement protection when we are approaching our retirement age, or when we've already reached our retirement age. So we feel very aggrieved. So if we don't act today, then 20 years later, people will ask why universal retirement protection was not implemented 2 decades before. So the money has to be spent. I think we must plan ahead. We must act now, or else we'll be in a very difficult position in 10 or 20 years' time. Let's not go on discussing OAA, CSSA, OALA. These rates will have to be adjusted in line with inflation. So the government's expenditure on these schemes is going to increase. I understand that on the average it's already $2,500. Professor Chow is proposing $3,000. Some people are proposing about $3,500. So I think we must plan ahead. The earlier we take action, the better it is for the elderly. No, the elderly do not want to force their children to sign the forms stating that they cannot or will not take care of their parents financially. So I really hope that you can think about this again. Alright, so let's try to narrow our differences. And where will the money come from? We have to plan well ahead. So I think it's important that we act speedily. I thank the deputations for coming, and for the elderly gentleman who is in his 80s and who has just spoken, please do not please calm down. All right, so thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.